Okay, so Pi Network, tons of you have been asking about it. And honestly,
Yeah.
it's not hard to see why.
It's everywhere, right?
Yeah, everywhere.
It's really captured people's imaginations, this idea that you can mine cryptocurrency right from your phone.
Just like that.
And the numbers are huge. We're talking over 35 million users globally.
Wow. That's a lot of people jumping on this bandwagon. But you know what they say?
Yeah.
When there's a gold rush,
Oh, there's gonna be.
watch out.
A lot of people trying to make a quick buck and not always in the most legitimate ways.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing, right? This whole Pi Network thing seems like it's become a breeding ground for scams.
It's unfortunate but true. Yeah, you see it all over social media, fake Pi team members sliding into DMs.
Oh, yes.
Promising the moon and the stars, outrageous returns, the whole 9 yards.
It's a minefield out there for sure, so let's give our listeners the tools they need to navigate this safely.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. So what's the number one thing people need to remember to protect themselves?
Verification, verification, verification. The real Pi team, the legitimate one, they are never going to ask you for your private keys.
Never, ever.
Never, ever.
That's a big red flag.
Huge. If someone's DMing you asking for that information,
Big old scammer.
run for the hills. Also, anyone saying you can cash out your Pi coins right now,
Which you see everywhere.
all over the place, it's just not possible yet. That's a major red flag.
It's that classic thing, right? If it sounds too good to be true,
It probably is.
it probably is. And these scammers, they prey on that. That
Right.
hope, that impatience.
Absolutely. They're looking for people who are eager to get rich quick, and they exploit that.
So how do we stay safe? You said verification.
Verification is key. Stick to official channels. The Pi Network app, their website, those are your trusted sources.
Basically, do your homework.
Exactly. Don't trust some random Telegram group or a shady website. Go to the source.
It's like, if you're looking for financial advice, you're not going to take it from a random person on the street, right?
Exactly. You're going to go to a financial advisor. You're going to do your research. Same principle applies here.
So we've established scammers are a real risk in this Pi Network world. But what about the network itself? Beyond the hype, what's actually going on? What have they achieved?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
There are definitely developments. They're not just sitting on their hands. One of the interesting things they're doing is trying to build a whole ecosystem around the Pi cryptocurrency.
So it's more than just the currency itself.
Exactly. They're talking about creating a platform, an infrastructure where Pi can be used for more than just speculation.
So like apps, services, that kind of thing?
Yeah, think about it. Apps, partnerships. They want to create a space where Pi can actually be used for transactions in the real world.
That's ambitious.
It's a big goal. It's like they're
Right.
trying to build a car while they're driving it.
That's a great analogy.
It's a bold strategy, and it's definitely attracting attention. Some people are excited, some are skeptical. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Because there's a pretty big piece of this puzzle that's still missing, right? The mainnet launch.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
Everyone's waiting for it.
It's a big question mark hanging over everything. They have moved a small group of users, pioneers they call them, over to the mainnet, but the vast majority are still waiting.
And that waiting game, it just fuels the uncertainty, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Not to mention the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Oh, absolutely. FOMO is a powerful force, especially in the world of cryptocurrency.
People see others potentially getting ahead and they don't want to be left behind.
It's understandable, but it can also lead to rash decisions.
For sure. So how do we balance that excitement, that potential, with the need to be cautious, to be informed?
That's what we're here to figure out.
So we've talked about the good, the bad, and the maybe even a little bit ugly when it comes to Pi Network.
Definitely a mixed bag.
But the question that keeps coming up, the one everyone wants an answer to is, will this thing actually work? Like, will it launch? Will it actually become something?
Those are the million Pi questions, right?
Right.
It's hard to say for sure. Nobody has a crystal ball, but we can look at what we know, right? We've got the tech, we've got people's opinions, the arguments for and against it. We can dive into that.
Okay, so let's talk about those arguments then. One thing that jumped out from all the research you sent over was just how much skepticism there is about Pi, especially from, like, the veterans, people who've been in the cryptocurrency world for a while.
Yeah, there's definitely a healthy dose of skepticism out there, and I get it. Pi is doing things differently. It's challenging some of the established norms, and that always ruffles some feathers.
Especially when you're talking about something like mobile mining. That seems to be a big point of contention.
Yeah, the whole idea of mining on your phone, some people just don't buy it. They say it can't be as secure, it can't be as decentralized as traditional blockchain technology.
Because with, like, Bitcoin mining. You've got these massive computer farms churning
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
right? That's what gives it value. So how does pi even compare to that?
That's the million pi question again, and it gets to the heart of what Pi Network is claiming to do. They're saying they're not doing that kind of mining, the energy intensive kind. They're focused on building a network, but through engagement, through verification.
So instead of your computer solving complex equations, you're verifying transactions, you're inviting new users. That's what earns you pi.
Exactly. It's more about participation, contributing to the network's growth, its security. That's the idea anyway.
Which, on the surface, I mean, that does sound a lot more accessible than needing a bunch of expensive computers, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of Pi's appeal. They've lowered the barrier to entry. Anyone with a smartphone can get involved. Potentially, it's democratizing the process in a way.
But like anything, easier isn't always better. And I saw some concerns about how centralized Pi Network is, which seems kind of counterintuitive for a cryptocurrency, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin. Right now, a lot of the control does seem to rest with the core Pi team, and that's raised some eyebrows. People are worried about transparency, about potential for, things not being on the up and up.
Because with cryptocurrency, the whole point is decentralization, right? Taking the power away from any one entity.
Exactly, that's the ethos. So how Pi navigates that, how they move towards a more decentralized system, if they do, that's something to watch very closely.
So it seems like with Pi, there's a lot of waiting and seeing.
There is, and that's tough, especially in the world of crypto where things move so fast.
So for our listeners, for someone who's hearing all this buzz about Pi, trying to figure out what's real, what's hype, what are the key takeaways here?
The most important thing, I think, is to be cautiously optimistic, maybe even a little skeptical. Don't just jump in blindly because everyone else is.
Don't FOMO into it.
Exactly. Do your research, understand the risk, and then decide if it's right for you.
Because as we've seen, there are potential pitfalls here, but there's also a potential upside. Nobody knows for sure how this is going to play out.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? It's a grand experiment, and we're all watching to see what happens.
Okay, so we've covered the scams, we've talked about the tech, the skepticism, but what does it all actually mean for Pi Network's chances of success? Like, what are the make or break factors we need to be paying attention to?
That's a great question, and it's one that leads us perfectly into our next point.
Okay, so we've really dug deep on Pi Network, haven't we? The good, the bad, all those questions about what it is and where it's going.
And I think we've covered a lot of ground, yeah, from the whole idea of mining on your phone to the tech behind it to the people who are both excited and skeptical.
Because right now, there's still so much up in the air, right?
There really is. It's almost like we're watching a movie unfold in slow motion.
The best we can do is try to make sense of what we're seeing and, keep an eye on the things that really matter, right?
Absolutely. Focus on the things that'll tell us if Pi is the real deal or not. And one of those things, obviously, is the mainnet launch.
The big one.
Yeah, it's been this long time coming, and you can just feel the anticipation building, but also the pressure.
Because if they can pull it off, if they can launch successfully,
That's huge. It's them putting their money where their mouth is, proving the doubters wrong.
it's going from this kind of experimental phase to like the real world, right?
Exactly. So we have to watch and see not just if they launch, but how it goes. Does it actually work? Are people using it?
Is it actually becoming this platform, this ecosystem they keep talking about?
Right. Are developers building on it? Are users making transactions? Those are the things that'll tell us if Pi has legs.
Because it can't just be hype. It has to actually do something, right?
Exactly. It needs real world adoption. That's the key.
And then there's the whole regulatory side of things, which we haven't even touched on that much.
And it's a big one because cryptocurrency in general, it's still kind of the Wild West out there.
Governments are trying to figure out what to do with it.
Exactly. So how Pi navigates that, how they work with regulators, that's going to be crucial because if they can't get that right,
It might not even matter how good their tech is.
it could all fall apart. So yeah, that's a huge piece of the puzzle to watch.
So for our listeners who are, maybe just hearing about Pi for the first time, or they've been following along, but they're not sure what to make of it all, what's the one thing you would tell them?
I'd say be curious, but be cautious. Don't get swept up in the hype. Do your research and don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
That's always good advice with anything in the crypto world.
Especially with something as new and untested as Pi, there's potential, but there are also risks.
No guarantees, that's for sure, except that it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating experiment, and we're all along for the ride in a way.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive on Pi Network. But hey, maybe this isn't the last time we'll talk about it.
Oh, I'm sure it won't be. This is just the beginning of the story, and I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of twists and turns along the way.
That's the world of crypto for you. Always changing, always keeping us on our toes.
Exactly, but that's what makes it so exciting, right?
Absolutely. Well, until next time, everyone, keep those thinking caps on, keep asking those questions, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive.
See them.